Okay, so let me ask you a little question, and it is there a number one driver at McLaren? Now, you'll probably say, yes, of course there is, it's Lando Norris, but with the recent news, there might be changes afoot. Changes which could mean a slightly different approach in how McLaren fight for world championships. Because following their success in winning the Constructors Championship in 2024, there's a new message out there, and it is, go out there and do it again, but this time just more wins and more domination. Let's do it again, but let's do it better. And I sense that the thinking at McLaren might be, if they can do that, then surely a driver's title will just deliver itself. And who exactly will be delivering it? In Zak's mind, perhaps, who cares, because they have two top drivers on apparently close to equal terms. And so in this unusual move, have McLaren actually done a smart thing and put the burden of managing driver hierarchy onto the drivers themselves to basically just let them handle it? No more of the, oh, I'm the number one driver, I need my teammate to support me in my quest for the championship. And also the whole, why am I number two driver? My performances aren't too far off his. So I sense there's an element of let them deal with it themselves as long as it doesn't harm the battle in the Constructors Championship. A move which could reveal itself to be one of genius or one of poor judgment from Zak Brown and co. So let's unpack this and see what this means exactly for Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. And while you're at it, click the little subscribe button below, turn on notifications, and if you're enjoying what you're seeing, click that little like button as well. It all helps, it's all good. Anyway, back to the story. So earlier this week, McLaren have dropped the massive news that they have extended Oscar Piastri's contract. How long for exactly? Well, we're not sure, but you'd like to think it's going to be pushing towards the end of the decade anyway. Oh, those vague multi-year contract announcements. And in a very surprising turn of events, this also means that Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri are going to be earning very similar numbers in terms of their salary. No more of this massive gulf that was between them before. And to be honest, if we're going to give anyone a round of applause here, it's got to be Piastri's agent, Mark Webber. He has pulled off a blinder there. It's certainly going to do a lot to elevate Piastri's profile, and now he might finally be able to buy that 2-bedroom bungalow in Woking. But overall, what does this mean for Piastri, and also what sort of message is this from McLaren themselves? Well, I sense there's a few things such as belief and commitment in Piastri and just motivating him just to get out there, do his best and win some Grand Prix. But also there's this other factor of keeping him involved in the team so that other teams keep their dirty little hands off him. Oh yes, perhaps it's a very tactical way of keeping one of McLaren's hottest assets on board. Because after being hauled on board McLaren and being saved from the French Titanic, we've seen some tremendous progress from Oscar Piastri, particularly in the second half of 2024. And that resulted in a total of 8 trophies, 2 wins, and making life a little bit harder for Lando Norris than he initially thought. And also having a guy like Mark Webber in your ear every weekend, who was subject to massive number 2 treatment from Red Bull when he was alongside Vettel, Team Piastri are going to be having none of it this year, which means by the look of it, Oscar will be starting 2025 in pretty good shape, with supposedly the fastest car on the grid, a brand new contract in his back pocket, and a whole season in front of him which you could consider as a blank sheet of paper. And this all sounds fantastic and everything, but now the burden of proof is now entirely on Piastri, because he has all the aces now and he has nothing to be a victim of really. A very promising car, lengthy contract, excellent pay, and the whole team behind him, this newfound support for Piastri. No more of the, he's doing pretty well considering it's Lando's team. That's going to be gone in 2025. So on the one hand, it's great that they've got this new equal footing where they can compete properly, but also this means that there is no more excuses now. And straight away from the off in Australia, Piastri has to be visor down, go out and win his home race, because anything else at this stage is really a disappointment. And I do sense with equal machinery and supposedly equal backing and status, could Piastri have the edge over Norris? Would Norris even allow Piastri to get in his head more than the other way around? Why is there a truck backing up outside? Beep, beep. Okay, it's gone now. Now, we've seen through tough and tense situations, Piastri can keep a lid on his emotions and just kind of focus on the job in hand. Whereas Lando appears to be more sensitive and emotionally volatile and can lash out and say things that he later regrets. But in the interest of fairness and not trying to appear one-sided, I think it's fair to say that Piastri is tougher, but Lando is pound for pound quicker. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with that. I mean, last year, Norris owned Piastri in the qualifying head-to-heads and fastest laps, even so that McLaren pulled Piastri up on it mid-season, supposedly. So it's going to be really interesting to see if Piastri can get a hold of that this season and turn that around, because if he does, he could be one pretty dangerous driver. There's that bloody truck again. Now, if the McLaren MCL39 is as good as everyone is predicting, it's likely that we're going to see Lando and Piastri scrapping for wins, and generally anything less than a podium will be considered a failure. In which case, that's great for Zak Brown and McLaren, because that effectively wraps up the Constructors Championship by itself. However, this does mean that he has to trust his drivers to keep it clean on the track, keep it respectful, and represent McLaren in a great way by having this sense of sportsmanship amongst themselves. And it might start out that way. Can he trust the drivers to do that later in the season? Well, we're just going to have to wait and see. So whilst this is an enormous signal to Oscar that we love you and we want you to stay, but it's also one that we trust you. We trust you to keep it clean in potentially a title fight with Lando. And also the sheer hope that the lineup doesn't implode, because that's never really happened before at McLaren, has it? And this is really a massive taking on from McLaren, because when they have been aiming for both world championships and they have gone down the road of equal drivers, it has got a little bit messy and tense. Because obviously there's the whole Prost and Senna saga, the Alonso and Hamilton saga, and also to a much, much smaller and lesser degree, Hamilton and Button. I did sense a small amount of tension there at the time. I mean, McLaren have won titles very smoothly when they've had a Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard or Heikki Kovalainen to support the number one driver. And by all means, Zak could have replicated this. He could have kept things exactly as they are and not really look at Oscar's contract until 2026. But the danger there is there could be other teams sniffing around Piastri who would be willing to give him a fair crack at the championship. So when you look at it from that way, it does seem quite a tactical move just to get Oscar Piastri off the driver's market for a little while. You know, perhaps good old Mark Webber rocked up to Woking one day with an unsigned Aston Martin or Mercedes contract, slapped them both on Zak's desk and said, look, what do you want to do? He may just have forced Zak's hand. We don't know. But putting Piastri to the side for a second, what does this mean for Lando Norris? What sort of message does this now send to him? Now, whether you like it or not, right now, Lando Norris is the golden boy at McLaren and pretty much the UK F1 fan base in general. And also, this is his 7th year at McLaren, equaling the likes of Prost, and is longer than Senna, Hamilton, or even Niki Lauda had. Only Coulthard, Hakkinen, and Button are ahead of him in terms of tenure there. So it is a great match that Norris has with McLaren, and he does have this fantastic relationship with Zak Brown, but could this also be a subtle message to him that he needs to turn it up a notch this season? You know, just things like no more getting overtaken on the first lap, no more getting yourself into little messy situations, and if you do just these little things, there should definitely be a driver's championship trophy with your name on it. So this whole thing is not just as simple as McLaren extends Piastri's contract. It's very loaded. It's a very multifaceted topic. One also that I hope will deliver a lot of action and drama as we go through the season ahead. But guys, let me know your thoughts on this. Who's going to come out on top between Piastri and Norris if they have front-running machinery? Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and also click that little like button as well. Cheers for watching. I'm Paul, and I'll see you later. Cheers.